Hope y'all are having a great Wednesday, kicking it off right. So today my plan is to make this Raider look like that Raider. get the red edge highlights down, because that's the only difference so far. So. Excuse me, got a little tool in the back of my throat there. I don't think I've ever been more paranoid about having a cough, but welcome anyone jumping in, hanging out. If you're watching the replay, go over to twitch.tv/ftgtevan, and follow me there. You'll get an email notification when I go live every morning, and that's the best place. You can also follow me on Twitter, ftgtevan on Twitter. I try to put up a tweet right before I come on here, but this is the first thing I do in the morning, so I don't always remember. Hit me up on any social media if you have questions, suggestions, comments, what have you. In particular, if you want to see a demo of any skill or technique or anything, I want to walk through how to best apply that. Hit me up if you just need some help coming up with some ideas. Hit me up with that. Happy to chat with y'all, and also if need be, do a demo. I am super ADD, so we can jump from what I'm doing to whatever you need to help you guys out. I really enjoy doing that, and yeah, so let's get on into it. We're going to be hitting these red panels with some Evil Sun's Scarlet. And I'm going to thin that down pretty good so that we can get a nice even coat. And also, it's just more forgiving when it comes to line highlights like we're doing here. So, also big props to Big Bad Beardo on Twitch for hitting me up with this band and a couple others like it. Super fun 80s synth rock vibes. Love it. We're gonna be checking these guys out for today, and maybe a few streams going forward. Also, bonus, I've heard that they are DCMA free, so you can free to use for streamers, which is awesome, because it's not like I make ad revenue on YouTube. I am not big enough to do any of that yet, but yet being the operative keyword, we can hope. But just getting, I don't know what it is. Like I said, I'm not making ad revenue. I'm not, like, the YouTube part of this is sort of an afterthought. I don't have the time to do like edited videos and stuff, and that's what you need to be successful and or interesting, in my opinion, on YouTube. So like, they're sort of an afterthought, but I'm streaming to YouTube just in case. If you're checking me out on YouTube, correct me, hit me up, tell me I'm an idiot. I'm totally fine with that. But yeah, like, so I'm fledgling. I'm not making any ad revenue, like I said, but getting those emails. I get an email like after every stream. Hey, you violated somebody's copyright, so you can keep the video up, but any ad revenue will go to them. And it's disheartening. Like, there is no ad revenue, right? But it's just, I don't know why it's disheartening to be like, alright, somebody's claiming rights to my video just because I played their music in the background, like on my phone nearby a microphone. Or I karaoke'd along to it. I don't know. I don't know why it's disheartening, but it is. It is. What is jumping? Okay. Random warning message for an app that I don't understand. Oh, hey. That's an alarm. Let's turn off the next one. Like I said, this is the very first thing I do in the morning. So if I'm not fully awake, I apologize. Well, that's a nice, inspiring thing to hear first thing in the morning for this 30-something-year-old. When you grow up, your heart dies. Thank you. Thank you for telling me I'm dead inside. Alright. It's alright. I don't believe that message. I get the idea. Morning, Thomas! I don't know why. That little emote just cracks me up. Which is why I picked it. Hi! It makes me think of Grr. I think that's the reason. Which, at this point, I don't even know if Invader Zim is, like, still a known or recognized pop culture reference. It was such a weird show. But I mean, that was the appeal, particularly with Kerr. All of his lines. Yes. Wait a minute. No. Not for you. Too young, I suppose. I mean, to be honest, I was probably too old for it when it came. I don't know. It was one of those like cartoons that was on. I think they only had like 2 seasons, if that. Like, I think there's only like 30 episodes. I could be wrong. But like, it was one of those that came out on Nickelodeon, I think. I think it was on Nickelodeon. And it was in one of those time slots that's, you know, this is a bright, weird-looking cartoon. It's perfect for 10-year-olds. And I feel like a lot of the comedy was a little older. Like, it wasn't adult comedy. It wasn't inappropriate. It was just to be really funny. I feel like it appealed to me as like a 16, 17-year-old or whatever. Whereas I think as a younger kid it wouldn't have. Which is probably why it wasn't terribly successful. And why you're too young. Too young to know Invader Zim and Gur. It's a weird show, from what I remember. How am I going to make these large surfaces look interesting? Well, the edge highlight helps, but yeah, you still have that large flat surface, right? So the other thing we'll add at the end, I don't know if I'll add any here, but almost have like a tattoo going on. So here's an example. Just on 1 or 2 spots around, we do like these little tattoos, which are almost like unit marking type things. Can help differentiate. So we got that one. There we go. So like razor wing, we got one on the wings there. So just kind of occasional spots to do a little scheme to break that up. Of course, I took him off his flight stand, and it's up there. I'm not gonna try to put that back. So yeah, that's the go-to. That, and having like the chains here will help with that too. Yeah, just a little bit of freehand. Can't make the whole model look interesting. Just a couple parts. And we'll have the whole crew on here. Well, all two of them. And the gun and the sail. Yeah, we'll have these big flat panels, but end of the day, there's a lot going on this thing. So it also allows things like this cool symbol there to kind of stand out if these are a little boring right behind it. In my opinion. Yeah, if I wasn't doing GW scheme here, I think, like, if I was approaching this totally new, I might try doing kind of an airbrush fade on each panel, which honestly might be a little taxing, depending on the direction that you choose. But so what I mean by that is doing a fade in a direction on each panel. So here we've got to this front corner here, we have the brighter spots, and we try to keep that fairly consistent across the model. Of course, as it changes place in three-dimensional space, that becomes a little difficult. But if you can keep them flowing all in the same direction, that helps kind of create motion for the eye. Sort of, it's not exactly realistic. In my opinion, I don't think it's completely realistic. It's a little like over exaggerated, but it's very interesting for the eye. Let me see if I can grab. Got a rhino over here. It's the same concept. The rhino is nothing but just flat blocks. So just looking at this, I can tell I have this panel on upside down. Yeah, it's stylized. So just kind of creating some interest as best we can within those panels. Having like a dozen panels on the side would definitely make that a little taxing. Trying to keep each one separate, but it's definitely possible. You kind of like, if you were airbrushing this one, like this panel right here, we could just turn the vehicle at an angle and kind of try to hit that corner there, and we wouldn't hit this one. And then for this one, we can just use our thumb and just aim like that to get there. Same thing here, and just kind of go along, use our thumb to mask, rather than, like, if you really needed to, you could use a paper or even more extreme, you could use like masking tape, but that would take a long time unless you kind of alternated almost every panel. And even then, it seems a little much. That might work for like Harlequins. I have 2 different colors, checkered across the whole thing. Yeah, but yeah, stylized. These are space pirates, space elf pirates. Elf space pirate? I'm just laughing at kind of the extreme 80s of this. The jazz sax going on. So this is Gunship, featuring Indiana and Tim Capella. Speaking of stylized, I feel like this music is highly stylized. Very carefully bending this piece of plastic out of the way. I think that was the whole idea of doing something stylized was one of the hardest lessons for me as I'm trying to improve my painting. It was like the whole idea of doing edge highlights, it just, particularly up close at the 3 to 6 inch range, it just seems so so obvious and cartoony that, like, for a long time I always wanted to blend everything back in a lot more. Try to have smooth blends everywhere. Smooth, seamless blends. And as a result, I would often have models that look great at the, I feel like looked great at the 3 to 6 inch range, but looked really flat sitting on the table. And we're playing a tabletop game, so if it looks flat at the table, it's not as exciting. It's also, as I found from being at events, and like particularly some of the, I feel like it's less a thing now. You know, it's still a thing maybe at like RTTs, little local tournaments, 15 or less people, 16 or less people. But at a lot of those, like, the award for best painted would be determined by like player choice, like everyone votes. That was particularly the thing at my local game store, and I felt like I had a couple armies that just didn't get attention because you just take a glance at them and they didn't catch your eye enough. And some of that might have been, you know, color selection and things, but there's also just if it's too blended, it looks like, even if the colors are kind of eye-catching, It's like that garners a glance, but then they just go, oh, it's kind of flat. Because it looks flat from a few feet away. And no one will come up to do that 3 to 6 inch inspection to see how deep the shadows can be and all this. Because if you're too realistic, it just looks like you painted it flat and it's realistically having shadows cast on it. That's my little spiel in favor of kind of being a little more over the top and a little more stylized, because it captures your eye a lot better. Oh man, we're on to a different band, and they got the sax rocking as well. This is The Midnight. I think that's appropriate for a band named The Midnight. You gotta have a jazz sax in there. Duke Silver rocking out to some 80 synth. So I gotta work on these guys because I got the Annihilation Barge and paints for the Miniac Charity Army. I think they're shipping out today. What's up? I have good and bad news. Alright. What is it, Spottiest? And good morning, everyone. Suddenly there's 5 people watching. So, hi! Say hello. Good morning. Happy Whip Wednesday. What's... Right, you choose. Tell me good or bad news first. You're working on Tau, but... I'm waiting for the... Spottiest, you got me on pins and needles here. Say inbound, alright. Yeah. We will drop everything and make sure we do the news justice. News justice. Sounds like a really boring superhero. Actually, it sounds like every keyboard warrior ever. Actually, you got some facts wrong in your news story. Blah. I have no idea what that was. The synth keyboard is great for the tension. That is so 80s. The do 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 do. It's just like straight up Karate Kid. Just every montage ever. Good news is I know what he has. Bad news is I have no hope. Well, I don't believe that to ever be true. Well, no, that's not fair. I do. I've walked up to a table and gone, well, this is a lost cause. Alright, so you got the Tau with the stealth suits and things. What is your buddy running? What nastiness is he bringing to the table? Yes. Pay to win. It's 10 tanks. 10. Well, that's not going to help him capture objectives or perform most of the secondaries. Well, I guess that depends on whether or not you're using the GT mission pack or other missions. I have no idea what like the Crusade missions look like. In my very limited time that I've had to spend with the rules and the missions, I've only looked at the GT mission pack for 2020. 2020. In a year that everyone hated. Some good stuff still happened. Like, as horrible a news year as 2020 has been, I won't lie, working from home for 7 months has 6 months, I guess, 6.5 now, has been awesome. I don't want to go back to the office ever. I am good with this being my day-to-day. I get to stream for an hour or two in the morning instead of driving to work. Spend less money. Well, sort of. Definitely not. We still get takeout, but not as often, and don't go out to restaurants like ever. Ten tanks. Playing guard or Marines? Spottiest, I gotta know. Like I said, I've played all of sort of 2 games. Guard. Okay. Got a bunch of Russes and things. I don't know. That -1. He has a regiment. That -1 that you get on a lot of your stealth stuff, right? You still get -1 to hit. Just like you. I feel like Tau and Guard really suffer. Like, yeah, you can only cap it at -1, but they still struggle with that. So lots of Russes. I'm sure several of them are tank commanders. So they're hitting on 3s. They're pretty reliable, but more than one regiment. You just sneak a little extra fusion in your stealth cadres, fusion collider, or whatever the go skills have. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No, I think the biggest thing will be that you guys have enough terrain, and that's kind of always been the thing that levels the playing field, and it can be hard, particularly at a game store, or particularly at a tournament. Like, showing up to a tournament, you have no idea how dense their terrain is. So I've shown up at tournaments where I'm expecting, a modicum of line of sight blocking terrain, which is fortunately aided by the obscuring rule for 9th. And just having 0 line of sight blocking terrain on the table. I'd say, in my rough estimation for 9th edition, you should have probably 4 pieces of line of sight blocking terrain, like obscuring, decent sized, at least 8 to 12 inch square to rectangle base of ruins that are obscuring. At least 4 pieces on a table. And then several other decently kind of line of sight breaking pieces of terrain. And that's just from me on paper. I would say that's even potentially on the light end, though I'm also still wrapping my head around the smaller board sizes. And those should be positioned fairly centrally, so like kind of center of each board edge, 6 to 12 inches off the middle or off the edge for the long table sides, and then 12 to 18 off the short table sides. And you can mess with that. The other version that's pretty common is like the sort of Nova style, at least around here, where we've got the table, and you've got 2 pretty chunky LOS blockers about 6 to 8 inches off the center of the table. And then you've got, wow, you cannot see that. It's just not showing up. There we go. And then you've got kind of 2 more smaller ones in these corners here that are also obscuring, and then something a little smaller like a hill that can hide like infantry in the opposite corners. Wow. Okay, there we go. And then just have kind of like a scatter ruin forest, something there. So it's that 8 pieces of terrain, I would say. Getting more Tau tomorrow. Nice. 8 pieces of terrain, I think is a decent amount for a table. And at least 2 of those really big, like 10 to 12 inch square kind of base area. You can maybe get 8 to 12. But very nice and chunky terrain pieces if you have a good healthy amount of terrain, that gives you an advantage because you have more mobility than those tanks do. Granted, tanks have more mobility than they used to, since they can move and shoot heavy weapons without penalty. But you're still able to cut down line of sight and fire lanes, and you can also kind of funnel him to places. It's like, alright, I can't... You can move and still draw a line of sight to me. You have the range and all that. But to do that, you're going to have to come over here to draw a line of sight to me. And this is like a dead zone. There's no objectives over here. All you're doing is shooting at me here, which doesn't score you points. Meanwhile, you jump on objectives and score points. Like, I had that with the tournament last year. It was ITC. So ITC scoring was based on, you scored for holding and killing in your turn, and then holding more and killing more. And we had, I think there was 4 objectives, and we had those nice big line of sight blocking things in the middle. I was playing against guard, and there was a good amount of infantry and a good number of tanks. And I had one of my tanks that was really good at shredding infantry and light vehicles, not so much heavy vehicles. She'd taken out most of the things that I could use to take out the Lehman Russes. She had them parked in her back corner. But I parked this tank right in the middle, in between those 2 big line of sight blockers, and it's looking right at one of the objectives that's out in the open. And I had bottom of the turn, and and so every turn she would throw a unit of guardsmen onto this objective to try to claim it, because I think it might have been worth a bonus I can't remember what it was, but she kept trying to throw guardsmen onto this objective so that she could hold it. And then I was playing Blood Angels, and then I would clear off that unit. She was just feeding me infantry unit after infantry unit sitting on this objective. Meanwhile, her tanks couldn't draw a line of sight on this tank. Like, it would take them 2 or 3 turns just to get there. And like, her tanks destroyed a lot of my other stuff that had to come out. And like, I had a big unit of Sanguinary Guard and all sorts of stuff, and they would jump out and she had a big unit of Bulgarin, and so they just like punched each other for like 3 turns, because they're both hard as nails units that won't die, with not enough attacks. But that kept her off the middle with that unit for the most part. I think they eventually won, walked onto that objective, and I blasted them off of it. So it was just this sort of like, you can try to hold that, but it's not going to work. And at that point in the game, like, there's only a couple turns left. Those Russes aren't going to be able to get to a place where they can impact that my Sakaran that was blasting people off the objective. So if you can position in a way that, and I believe objectives can't be in terrain, right? I think that was a fact recently in errata, that terrain needs to be moved so that objectives are not in terrain or within 3 inches of terrain or something like that. So that's good for shooting armies. But you can still position in a way that you got one or two objectives that's pretty well hidden unless they come to an inopportune place and you're still able to reach an objective. And I would generally say Tau have... Does he have any infantry? 10 tanks, that's a lot of points. That's a lot of points. Does he have any infantry? Because guard infantry are fast. They are deceptively fast. But if he doesn't have any guard infantry, any infantry units, like... That's the best part of guard, man. Okay. What? How many points are you guys playing? Sounds like a massive game. Like, just off the top of my head, 10 tanks should be at least 1,500 points. At minimum. You guys playing like a 3,000 point game? In which case, I don't know. I haven't played a game that big in a long time. Things are gonna die. I mean, things die as it is. Okay, so he's got a lot of infantry. Will be a big game. Interesting. Yeah, guard infantry are super good. I think they're are they 6 points? Your basic guardsmen? I can't remember. But so my first tournament with the Blood Angels was Nova, and I ran the very meta at the time, because this was a lot before a lot of the things that restricted soup. It was a knight with a guard regiment and a battalion of Blood Angels, and shit talking and saying I would take on everything. Well, end of the day, you're gonna have fun. You're gonna roll dice, and you're gonna learn how to learn the game a little better and continue talking shit down to the very end. I have a story about talking shit. But to finish my thought, so I took the very meta thing, which was a guard like CP battery. It's back before you could only regen 1 CP per turn. Guard you could can't back down now, no sir. You could regen a CP for on a 5-up for every one that you spent and every one that your opponent spent. And you could also add on a banner that every time you use a stratagem on a 5-up, you got a command point back as well through the Blood Angels. So, like, there was a couple times where you could spend 2 CP and get 3, or spend 1 CP on a strat and get 2. It was stupid. No doubt it was stupid. And that was why the guard were there. My guard detachment was literally 3 infantry units. It was a battalion, 3 infantry units and 2 company commanders. I think I put mortars on the infantry units because mortars used to be stupid cheap, like 3 points or 5 points or something. And that was it. That was the only equipment I gave that guard battalion. And I took them as a CP battery and to stand on objectives. That was what I thought they would do. The guard infantry, my first game round one of this tournament, it's 8 rounds. Round one of this tournament was the first time I'd played any part of this army. So didn't have a whole lot of experience going in. But as the tournament went on, I learned that the guard infantry were just bonkers good. They won me 3 or 4 games. Like, I won 5 games. I went 2-2, and then brackets are the last 4 rounds. I went 3-1. I lost the championship round for the bracket. So I went 5-3, and they won me probably 3 of my 5 wins easily. Like my first, yeah. The other 2 games, I just like destroyed my opponent. It wasn't even close. But there was several times where it was like using move. I moved them across, like clear across the table, way across, to get to an objective and hold it down at the end of the game, or to deny their last turn of scoring or what have you, and win by 2 or 3 points. My last win, my 7th round, it wasn't even the infantry units, because the commanders could order themselves. So the company commander moved himself onto an objective that was empty. Like he had moved a jet bike character onto the objective to contest the one that he was standing on. So he just moved like 18 inches, 20 inches or whatever, down to another objective. I was like, alright, you can have that one. So he moved 2 characters onto it. So he just ran away and ran onto a different objective and took that one instead. So, Carter, good. So, back to shit talking. So a bit of my history here. One of my claims to fame. I used to run a blog and be on a podcast called Facing the Grey Tide, hence FTGT. That's what FTGT stands for, is Facing the Grey Tide. And we were 3 of the 4 main contributors were NID players, first and foremost. I don't know if you know this, but particularly before 8th, which is about the time we stopped producing regular content, NIDs are terrible. NIDs have been terrible and largely are terrible. But we were diehard NIDs players. So we had this running joke of having an alternate personality, and I think we wrote 1 or 2 blog posts as this alternate personality. So, backstory to the backstory. One of the guys was Ron Smiley, is his name. And back in like 6th edition, there was a tournament tracking software called Torrent of Fire, not Tournament of Fire. Torrent of Fire. And it would track, it would help with pairings and all that, very much like BCP does. BCP kind of copied them and torpedoed them a little bit. Not biased at all. But so it would do tournament pairings, but it would also track your results kind of over time. They did like an ELO, which was really cool. That was right toward the end of their run, so there was a few bugs with it still. But it was a great concept, really cool. So it would track, you could roll up to a table, like see your pairings at an event. You're like, I don't know this guy. And you could look at his profile and see past events he'd played in, what armies he'd used previously, his record, who he'd played before, all that. Ton of information that you could look up about this person. Kind of do a little scouting if you wanted. So one of the first events, I think it was first or second event my buddy Ron had gone to, he'd signed up, and then he's got some family drama. He has to leave. And this is Nova, big 3-day event. He showed up for the first day and was going to have to leave the third day, the second day of the 40K tournament. And something had told me that this might happen. So a buddy of mine down here, another guy on the podcast, Chandler, he had just started teaching. And it was the first week of school. So the first day of the tournament is Friday. He can't skip school. He can't take a day off in the first week. That's just not happening. So he wasn't planning on going to Nova, but just in case, I'd taken his army up with me. I packed it and brought it up with me. And so Thursday afternoon, my buddy Ron realizes he's gonna have to drop. Like he could maybe play Friday, but realistically, he probably shouldn't even do that. He's got family drama. He's got to go home. So we hit up a buddy of ours who had just moved to the Northern Virginia area. Had never played in a big tournament, just plays 40K for fun. Hadn't played in a few months because he graduated and moved up to Northern Virginia, was working at a startup, working tons of hours. But I hit him up and I say, hey, would you be interested in being Ron Smiley for a day, playing Chandler's army, which was Space Wolves, and he was, by the way, Will, this guy was a Dark Angels player. This is a super convoluted story, but would you mind playing Space Wolves for a day for Chandler as Ron? Because Ron was the one signed up and registered. And he was like, yeah, man, that sounds fun. I'll come play 3 games, roll some dice for a day. I can take the day off. And roll some dice and have fun. Play Chandler's army. He was like, I don't know if I'm gonna. He's like, at first he was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm probably gonna lose. And I was like, that's fine. Like, it's totally fine. I mean, he just wants to come up and play games, but he can't come up Friday. And you can't just skip 3 rounds and then show up round 4. Like, that just doesn't work. No one's going to allow that. So he's like, yeah, I'll play Friday. So he playing someone else's army, predictably, and it also, Chandler is the most narrative of the 4 of us on the podcast. Very much just takes stuff that he thinks is cool. Not always the best tactical or competitive choices. So his list wasn't phenomenal by any stretch. So Will predictably goes 0-3. Then Chandler shows up and plays Saturday, Sunday. Again, all as Ron in this tournament software. And I think he doesn't win a game. He might win 1 game. I think they win 1 or 2 games out of the 8 between the 2 of them. And so then this is sitting on Ron's profile as Ron Smiley went 0-8 at Nova or something. He's like, man, that just... I think he only had 1 other event, but he's like looking forward to other events coming up and trying to build up his profile a little bit and excited for the future of this program. He's like, and I did software testing for him, so I actually had admin access to the site. He was like, is there any way you can make that not me? I was like, well, it's tied to your profile. I can't like separate the event, but he only had one other event. I was like, I can change the name so that when you sign up again as Ron Smiley, it's a new profile, and you can have a new record. He's like, yeah, let's do that. And so I changed the name. I don't know why. I changed the name to Ronaldo Smigley. Ronaldo Smigley was then bored. And I don't know why. So, that really long backstory is to get back to the trash talking. We came up with this alternate profile, alternate personality. We even made a profile for him on the blog, and again, I think wrote 1 or 2 articles. But basically, it was somebody who would just eternally trash talk, totally divorced from reality, particularly the reality of what NIDs were, and just talk about how great all Tyranids are. Like, it was a joke because Tyranids were terrible, particularly at the time that we came up with this joke. And so it would be like, all right, Ronaldo's going to a tournament and here's his list. And like, we would, again, I don't know if we ever published an article, but we like talked about it, and it was just a running joke that Ronaldo would talk about how great all these terrible units were. And like, anytime we wanted to just, it's like, I really love this model. I know it's bad, but I need to fill 100 to 200 points in my list. I have one of these that's painted. It's terrible. It's a Ronaldo Smigley choice. And it was just like, hive mind always wins. You know, hive mind consumes all. Okay, you like, even when you lose, you go, all right, you just defeated a tendril, but the greater hive fleet is coming. This was just the first attack, and we wasted your bullets. Ha 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 ha. Like, just total ridiculousness. And so, anyway, talking crap. Don't back down. If anything, double down. Double down and then laugh about it and how ridiculous it is. But anyway, Spottiest, you'll do great. And I have been rambling total story time for a long time. Are they any good now? Tyranids? I mean, with the new edition, I think jury's still out a little bit. They were not done any favors with the new points, and like, I thought it was kind of funny because in the last chapter, Approve of 8th, they got a couple of units got like really good points fixes. It was like, this unit is just too expensive for what it does. Like, so you have he also has Sisters of Battle in an army. Interesting. I have no idea what Sisters do. That's one of those armies, like, walk up to the table and go, I have no idea what anything in your list does. So just tell me when they kill stuff. Yeah, some NIDs are not in a great place. So they have their horde units. They have Hormagaunts, Termagants, and Gargoyles. And Gargoyles are fast attack. So they're not objective secured, or whatever their version of the rule is. They fly, so they move 12 inches. They're fast-ish. And they have the same gun as the Termagants, which is like a bolt pistol. They're all paper thin. T3 6-up save. Hormagaunts are combat only, don't have a gun. Move 8 inches plus an advance, and then they get a extra 3 inches on pile in and consolidates, which is really good, really good. More so, it was really good in 8th when tagging tanks was a thing. Still value in it, but not as much. Nice Games Workshop has done something. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so those 3 units were in 8th edition were 4 points for Termagants, 5 points for Hormagaunts, and 6 points for Gargoyles. And I could just never justify paying for 1.5 Termagants compared to a Gargoyle. I was like, yeah, the Gargoyles are faster, but they don't have objectives secured. Do I know how to unglue something? What kind of glue did you use? That's the important part. If you use plastic glue, there's basically, you just have to do surgery. You got to cut it off. Because plastic glue, at least normally, melts the metal or melts the plastic and fuses it together. If you use super glue, you can pry it apart. Usually these are plastic bits, so prying can be a little, depending on the connection, can be a little hairy. But if you use super glue, one tip that I've heard is you can put it in the freezer, let it get super cold, and that way the super glue will become a little more brittle. You can attempt to use some solvents, but I would be very hesitant to do so because anything that's going to dissolve super glue is probably going to dissolve plastic as well, or melt plastic. So if you use super glue, I would say try putting it in the freezer. If you can't just pry it apart with your hands, gently pry it apart, put it in the freezer for a few hours, and then try prying it apart. If that still doesn't work, I'd say you might have to bite the bullet and go in with an X-Acto knife and cut it off. So, back to my story. So in Chapter Approved, the last one for 8th edition, they brought Gargoyles down to 5 points. So then they're the same cost as Hormagaunts, which were nearly as fast. Broke my Fire Warrior's legs. Ugh. Rough, man. Fixable. That's one thing. It is fixable, even when you break them. Usually. Yeah, so they brought them down to be the same cost as Hormagaunts. So Q 9th edition, we get the points updates, and the new floor is 5 points. So Termagants go up to 5 points, Hormagaunts go up to 6, and then Gargoyles go up to 7. So back to the 1 point more than Hormagaunts, 2 points more than Termagants. And it was just like, well, you just brought them down to be the same points as Hormagaunts because they don't have objectives secured. So, to a degree, their speed isn't as important when they can't just swipe an objective like Hormagaunts can. So, long story short, Tyranids have a lot of issues like that. They also have a lot of issues, like Gargoyles also, they have a little pistol. It's not a pistol, it's an assault weapon. So they don't get pistol bonuses. Where they also have a combat ability. Need new legs. Oof. I would say you could still potentially heal him. I mean, if you want to send a picture, like post on Instagram and send a link or whatnot. I've generally found that anything is fixable and hideable. Worst case, you give him kind of a scenic base. So take a piece of a wall from a ruin or something, or just build one that kind of hides, and he's like leaning on it or stepping on it or whatever. Because like you can repose plastic really well too. Like I've cut people at the knees to get it reposed. Make him crouch, make him stand different, what have you. New legs are going to be essentially impossible to get. I would say I could send you one, but honestly, the postage would be as much as just buying one. I've probably got a handful of fire orders I could part with. Yeah. Oh, you have the legs. So you need to snap the legs off. If the legs are already broken, like if you have a part that's already broken that you're trying to remove, like I would say you can just kind of go in with some pliers and just pull at it, try to get as much off as you can, and then use a knife, use a hobby knife to clear off what you can and get it as clean as you can. So I've been using this app to yell at me to do a 5-minute workout, and it also has a setting that it will yell at me to take a drink. So it just yelled at me that I need to take a drink. Yesterday was my first day of having that setting on, and I swear I had to pee so much all day. A lot of towel parts. Well, that's good. That always helps. So yeah, I would say you can pry off what you can, and then go in with an X-Acto carefully, preferably like down on a surface, cutting down toward a surface. Cut off as much as you can, and then just start scraping. The plastic is soft enough that you can scrape and cut and do all sorts of things to it. Like you can definitely get the torso clear enough to put new legs on him. You said you're getting more Tau today. What new Tau are you getting? What more do you need? Alright, so we're done with the Evil Sun Scarlet. It's 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Alright. I'm trying to think how long I need to work today. So I'm taking tomorrow and Friday off. I've cut myself already trying and get my list. Gotcha. Yeah, I would just be careful and whenever possible kind of brace and then cut down. always cut away from your fingers because you're going to slice yourself. I think we've all done it. A buddy of mine in the chat just the other day was like, note to everyone: if you drop an X-Acto knife, don't try to catch it with your legs. Sent a picture of a decent sized gash in his leg. I mean, I'm pretty sure I would do that out of instinct whenever I drop something. I'll squeeze my legs together to try to catch it, because otherwise it's lost to the warp. But yeah, the plastic is nice and moldable and cuttable, because this is converted from, that's the base model, and this is the other base model. So I use the body of him, cut off the hands, here and here, cut off the sword from the hands. And there, had to lose the cross guard because this one molded into his forearm. But yeah, I was able to do it. The angle of this hand is a little funky, just because of the angle that this vambrace is. Like, this needs to be twisted, but that was too much work. I wasn't going to do that. So, fun conversion for my second Judiciar. Alrighty. I want to keep going. I want to keep painting, but I should probably get to work. Get to my day job so I can quit and then have my 5-day weekend. So I'm taking, for my day job, I'm taking tomorrow and Friday and then next Monday off, which is super exciting. I still, my plan is to still stream at least one or two or all 3 of those days. Still get up with one of my alarms and stream for a few hours until my kids get up, and then just go do things with the family. That's my plan. There's a decent possibility that my alarm goes off and I go, I don't have to get up, and I go back to sleep. So we'll see if I see you tomorrow or Friday. That's my goal, is to still come up here and paint. Doubly so because, as I mentioned, I've got the Nova Charity model being shipped to me, and it's on its way. But I'd like to get at least close to done before I divert and go paint that instead. Because these have been on my painting desk for far too long, and I'm actually starting to make progress. It's exciting. So anyway, I think I'm going to, as much as I would love to just keep telling stories and hanging out, I think I'm going to call it day. And let's see where we can go. Who can we go hang out with? Alright, we got Alchemist and we got Big Bad Beardo. Been hitting up Alchemist almost every day, so let's go hit Big Bad Beardo. He hit us the other day with a nice raid. So Tau Fire Warrior Stealth Suit. That's it so far. Alright. Let's go raid Big Bad Beardo. And I will see you guys at least one more time this week. That's my goal. At least one more time. So, see you guys. Bye.